I'd like to welcome everyone out to the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, February 21st. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We will begin by having a pledge of allegiance by David Cox. Just come on up and the microphone. Sorry about that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, David. We have a full quorum today, and I'd like to move on to item 1.3, which is approval of minutes for January 17th, 2019.
Motion to approve the minutes from 1/17/19.
Motion by Lauren.
Second.
And a second by Andrew. We'll start on that side. Lauren?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Brody?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
And Adam.
Yes.
We'll move on to item 1.4. I'm just asking if there's any conflict of interest on any of the items today. All right, thank you, Planning Commission. And we'll now move on to item 2.1, which is a request for the proposed preliminary plat for a two-lot subdivision for Advantage Arts Academy Charter Schools, and we'll turn to the staff.
Okay, thank you. And the Commission, of course, is very familiar with this project as it has appeared before you a few different times. We heard this 2 weeks ago. The Commission voted to table both applications, the subdivision and the site plan approval. We did renotice, or you continued and held open the hearing, but not for a specific date. We went ahead and sent out notices advertising again that this is a continuation of that public hearing tonight. Now, the hearing, of course, is only for the subdivision. The site plan does not require a hearing. We also have received a request from the applicant that they are asking the Commission to basically do a vote for or a vote against the application. They are familiar with the staff report. They have reviewed all of the conditions of approval. I don't know if they have any specific concerns or if they might address anything. We have worked very, very closely, as the Commission knows, with the applicant to try and negotiate and resolve a number of concerns. Our list of concerns have been reduced through this effort. As the Commission also knows, we've included both proposed agreements that address both halves of this project, both lots that are involved in the project. We've also have summarized the key points of those agreements and put them in your as a recommended conditions of approval. So we have definitely belted and suspended this project. So we're looking forward to answering any of your questions that you may have still tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and just again to orient those who may be unfamiliar with this project, I'll talk about both the subdivision and the site plan quickly. Again, this is our vicinity map just showing where this property is located. Currently, there is no existing development around the site, although we have been working on a future residential subdivision that would surround this site. And then the corner of 118th and Pioneer is reserved for commercial uses. You can see the charter school in relationship to these preliminary subdivisions that the city has been reviewing with you and with the engineering department. This is the two-lot subdivision. Recall that originally there was a remnant parcel or a rear parcel that did not have frontage on 118th South. We've identified that as a concern because our ordinance does require frontage. And so they now have a portion of Lot 2 that does front on 118th. Now, it is an unusual shape, but there is nothing in our code that would prohibit this. We don't have a minimum lot width or lot area in the C2 zone. So this, again, is consistent or compliant with our subdivision regulations. And again, this is a preliminary approval. This will still be subject to a final review that will be administered by the city, although the charter school is essentially a creature of the state. It's my understanding that they will be pursuing a building permit subject to your review and approval through the state. But the subdivision portion would still be administered and reviewed by the city. Again, we tried to bring more clarity in your packet that this is for phase 1 development only. We have been working, as you know, with a future phase for expansion of the school with 8 additional classrooms. And I'll show a site plan that shows what that will look like, but we have a condition of approval tonight, recommending a condition to the commission that at the point in time that the applicant wants to execute or pursue phase 2 development, that they would have to come back to the city and obtain a second site plan review and approval from the city. These are the elevations that you've seen before for phase 1. Again, we have very little control over the architecture of the building according to state code. And then phase 2, which again is just an exhibit. It is not what you are approving tonight, but it does show a future connection into the Jackson Village subdivision. And then also an elimination of a drive approach that is further west on 118th. Again, you can see both of those drive approaches on 118th in that slide, and then there's only one. The easternmost approach still is present in this phase 2 development. There is, they've included the elevations for phase 2, just showing the additional classrooms. And again, that does meet with our bulk standards, which is one of the few things that we can regulate when it comes to charter schools. So it does comply with our height, setback, and bulk, our massing requirements. Again, we've reviewed the project, and we have recommended approval with the conditions that are enclosed in the staff report. And again, the subdivision, which is your first item on your agenda, is a public hearing tonight.
Thank you, Michael. I will turn to the applicant to see if there's anything else he would like to share in regards to this.
Tyler Bodrero, 3248 South 750 West, Syracuse. There's nothing further I'd like to add, but we would entertain any questions or concerns that the commission has.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing, and then we may ask some after that. Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. It's on the bottom. And the public comment policy and procedure. The purpose of public comment is to allow citizens to address items on the agenda. Citizens requesting to address the commission will be asked to complete a written comment form and present it to Wendy Thorpe, Deputy Recorder. In general, the chair will allow an individual 3 minutes to address the commission. A spokesperson recognized as representing group in attendance may be allowed up to 5 minutes. And this policy applies to all public hearings. At this time, we will close the public hearing, and we'll turn to the Planning Commission. There was one item that I noticed, which I guess I need to clarify with staff potentially. So looking at this map right here, you know, we turned Lot 2 into, for no better terms, a flag lot, correct? But when I'm looking at the actual plan, am I seeing Lot 1 going all the way over with the road or the parking? And how does that work?
Okay, I'm not exactly.
Well, because if you go back to the next slide, the parking goes all the way across part of
So
lot two.
parking goes across the flag portion of it. I just want to make sure I understand this because typically this isn't something we see.
So the parking lot does lie on both.
Lot 1 and Lot 2.
Yeah. However, I'm not sure what your concern is in that.
I'm just wondering if that is a concern, if it's separated into 2 lots.
I think it would be, except for the staff report says number 4. It says that they really can't do anything with lot 2.
Okay.
So I think it's covered enough, as well as I know it's in the agreement as well.
And I'm good with that. Before it wasn't like this. I wanted to make sure I understood it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that addressed all our concerns, my concerns.
Okay.
I have one that I'd like to ask the applicant, and just briefly. You were in the work meeting where Chris asked about this, removing the sidewalk and putting an 8-foot trail in lieu of those two. Do you have an issue with that? Along the frontage of the 118th?
In lieu of the
Sidewalk.
city standard sidewalk,
Correct.
either would be acceptable.
You're okay with
You're
each?
not talking about both, you're just talking
We're
about
talking about one or the
one
other.
or the other.
Yeah. I just wanted to understand if you got any heartburn with that one way or the other.
No, so if that came back through engineering and that was something that was a master plan deal, we could coordinate that through construction.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That was all I wanted to ask.
All right, then I'll turn to the Planning Commission to be able to make a motion on item 2.1.
I'm comfortable making a motion. If anyone else would like to, I can hold back, though. All right. I recommend approval of item, sorry, I flipped the page too far. S2018-23 for preliminary subdivision comprised of 2 lots with 3 small adjustments to the staff reports. There's 14. On number 2, the applicant, property owner, and tenant shall comply with all agreements of development as specified with attachment E. I want to add the additional language that says the agreement shall comply with the clarifications by the city attorney. I know that John had some things he wanted to tweak for exhibits and things like that, but so that needs to be adjusted. And then number 14, it just says that it's the staff's recommendation. I think it should say it is required to utilize temporary means to eliminate left-hand turn movements. And then in addition, number 15, an 8-foot path in lieu of the sidewalk along 118th, according to whatever engineering decides is the best, whether it's a path or a sidewalk. Understand on those, the clarification? The addition of item number 15 that says an 8-foot path or a sidewalk, one or the other, whatever engineering decides.
You made a comment earlier as well about making sure the recording of that easement. Did you want to make that as a?
I actually looked at that, and if you look at the agreement, it's covered in there, so I think it's sufficient because number 2.
Okay.
But thanks for catching that.
I'll second this motion.
So I have a motion by Adam and a second by Brody. And we'll start on this side with Lauren for vote.
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Brody?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
And Adam.
Yes.
And that item passes. Let's go on to item 2.2, which is a request for a final site plan review for Advantage Arts Academy Charter School. And we'll turn to staff on that.
One point of clarification that staff discussed with the city attorney this afternoon is we want to be clear that in the attached exhibits for phase 1, there are 3 portions of the building that it's labeled as future classroom additions or future additions. So we want to be sure that it's on record that we are not approving those future additions tonight. They're included just for reference only, although they are included in phase 1. So we just want to have that on the record.
Do we need to put that as a number 16?
You may, if you wish. We had even talked about amending that exhibit for the agreement, I believe, John, we were talking about
And that's why I
doing
tried
that.
to put in the agreement language that,
Right, if you do something similar to that, and then I will put a designation right on the exhibit itself
okay,
of right on it.
okay, and I'll just add the 16, number
Okay.
16, just make it
Whatever I
smooth.
want, right.
If that, whatever you guys need.
As
easy enough.
opposed to 2 with tweaks?
Huh?
As opposed to 2 with tweaks?
Yes.
All right, then I'll turn to the planning commission to be able to make a motion.
Okay, I would recommend approval. I don't remember the number on this one. What was that? P201805. P201805, with staff's 14 comments in their staff report. Again, with an alteration to number 2 that adds the agreement shall comply with the clarifications provided by the city attorney. Number 14, that it is required to utilize temporary means to eliminate left-hand turn movements from the east entrance to 118th South, and the rest of the language. And then 2 additional comments, an 8-foot path in lieu of a sidewalk. And number 16, that there is no approval of any elevations for phase 2. Is that fair?
A motion by Adam
I'll second.
and a second by Andrew. We'll call for a vote with Adam,
Yes. Sorry,
Andrea?
I heard something else.
Yes.
Brody,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
and Lauren.
Yes.
That motion passes, and we'll move on to item 2.3. Proposed subdivision amendment to subdivide one building into 4 individual lots. And we'll turn to city staff.
Okay, this is in the Overlook subdivision. This is similar to 1 or 2 that you've had come before you recently. And so in this case, this is a single building made up of 4 rental units currently, and the applicant is proposing to split it into 4 individual parcels, so presumably so they can be for sale. And we can let it be to the applicant to explain anything else that he wants to add.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant present? If you mind coming up, just stating your name, and then any additional comments on this.
Steve Vanderlaan here, just here to answer any questions that you might have in this proposal. So pretty simple and straightforward, I think.
All right, thank you so much. I'll let you sit down. We may call you up in a second for questions, and I'll turn to the City Planning Commission for comments.
No issue with this one. No issue. I said this one.
This one.
Then we will look for a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve per recommendations that, and requirements stated here. Yeah.
Motion by Jackson
I'll second it.
and a second by Adam. We'll call for a vote with Lauren,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Brody,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
and Adam.
Yes.
And that passes. We'll move on to item 2.4, which is a request for PUD amendment to adjust rear setbacks from 30 feet to 26 feet for one lot. And I'll turn to city staff.
All right. This one, as you said, so this is part of the Miller Crossing PUD. And the approval in Miller Crossing, the setbacks are determined in each phase specifically. And in this phase, the lots along the south side were all required to have a 30-foot rear yard setback. Again, specifically just for this phase. The applicant is asking specifically on this lot to reduce that rear yard setback from 30 feet to 26 feet. You can see they've got some elevations that so just this, the corner there just doesn't quite fit within the 30-foot setback. So they're just asking her to reduce the setback from 30 feet to 26 on just this one lot. So it is, because it is a PUD and it is specifically for this subdivision, you do have the ability to give them an exception on this one, so that's why it's coming to you.
All right. Thank you, Bryn.
Questions?
I don't think so. Is the applicant here? Do you mind coming up, just stating your name and then sharing anything else you may?
John Gassman with MacArthur Homes. I think you've summarized it pretty well. This lot, unfortunately, if you look at the overall plat, the way this knuckle is shaped, and it's kind of hard to see on this one, but for whatever reason, and we weren't involved with the preliminary design of the subdivision, but for whatever reason, this knuckle is shaped differently than the other two and encroaches further into the lot. And by requiring that minimum 30-foot rear setback in combination with the 20-foot front setback, it makes it virtually unbuildable unless you design a custom, shallow footprint to go on there, plan to go on there. So that's why we're requesting that. We did try to, and when we put it on there, if you can go back to that previous slide, if you'll notice that orange area that encroaches into that 30-foot setback, we tried to keep that aligned with the lot, that common lot line between lots 5 and 6, between the Brown and the Wells, so that it wasn't directly behind either of their homes. So anyway, that's all.
All right, thank you. And then is there any questions that the Planning Commission may have for the applicant? No. I will let you sit down then. I do want to state that we did receive emails from a number of citizens in regards to this, and though this is not on for public hearing, I did want to make the public aware that there was about 3 or 4 different emails in regards to this, stating in opposition of allowing this just because of original agreements that some of the neighboring lots felt like they had made with the developers and et cetera. So
I think because we received those emails, we have to, I personally think we need to open it up for public comment. Because unfortunately, we've had public comment via emails, so.
Okay. Planning Commission?
That's my
else?
opinion.
I agree.
Any other comments on that, or? just
Well,
in
on that
general?
first, because I'm okay with opening it up,
Yeah, I am
but
too, yeah.
may change us having to.
I think in the future, we do need to address that, and at the end, I'm gonna talk about that
okay.
with the attorney.
Yeah.
All right.
In our practices of how we do
And I
these
think
kind
that's
of things.
okay. And so at this time, I would open it up for public comment if there's anyone here that would like to share any comments in regards to this. Oh, here comes John first.
I'm concerned you didn't notice it. And so just those that happen to show get to make comment, and those that saw and read your agenda and said, this is not a public comment period.
I agree, but what
And
we
when
do
those,
is we've
when,
accepted the
when those emails were passed out, I was saying, oh no, please don't do that, but they did.
So at the end of this discussion, can we talk about that before we have another meeting? Because we continue to get emails like this. And I think in the future, I would request that staff just keeps those emails and say, we received 25 emails, hypothetically, and they tell us
You're
that,
allowing public comment by email, right?
and we can be aware that they received 25 emails. We don't necessarily need to decide to see what's in those emails if it's not open for public comment. But I don't know how it's not fair now because we have accepted public comment by getting the emails.
I'm just thinking out loud here. Continue it, give out a notice, and let everybody have the same opportunity to give comment.
Or don't take comment?
You've already done it.
We basically have to do that, right?
You can take comment now, but I think you need to give everybody the opportunity, the same. Just because they happen to show or happen to send an email, they may have said, oh, I know what the rules are.
I agree. I think we're stuck on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, you can take comments today. Just make sure that we have a formal, but it's an administrative matter, which, okay.
Yeah.
All right, then I guess at this time we will open public comment.
Hey, well, Lisa Brown. I am lot number 5 here that is affected potentially by this change. And I want to just thank you for allowing me the opportunity to give public comment. I did send an email because I wasn't sure if we'd be able to speak in the meeting or not today. But as I did mention in the email, because our neighbors have been really proactive throughout this whole process to stay engaged, and we've been to, I swear, hundreds of meetings. But even back to 2013, 2014, when this property very, very first started coming into play, we were attending meetings. And so I do feel like it is important that we be able to continue engaging in the public process of it. We are opposed to the change simply because we have tried to stay really involved in the process, and this 30-foot setback was a bit of a compromise with the developer, since originally we'd been promised 30-acre lots behind our houses to align with what we have. And I traced that back to the public record for you so that you could see that. But yeah, that would be our request tonight. I know it's unfortunate for the home builder to come in after the fact and kind of need to make some adjustments on their end, but I don't know what practice is. Can they push this house forward 4 feet and still keep that backyard setback? I don't know how that works for city codes, but just kind of thinking they have more resources to make some adjustments than we do as homeowners to, not able to move our fence. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? We will leave this item open. I will turn to the City Planning Commission to make some comments at this time, but we'll leave it open and continue this most likely.
So
I think that's what you're going to propose.
I think we have to.
I think we have to.
To give notice.
Yeah. So, but we can make comments on this item now and then just leave it open for the other meeting.
On this topic, I think a custom design, we don't always approve that they have to be their standard designs of buildings, so I don't understand why we would change it. That's my opinion. I'm not making a motion right now because I think we have to continue it because of the public comment issue. But I'm leaning on design a different building and fit it in the building footprint that we approved. I remember being in this meeting and talking about the 30-foot setback for all of your 100-ish meetings, and I don't see why we would change.
Well, and to her point, we were talking about this before the public comment. Can they move it? Because I don't show a distance there. We were talking about that before. Is there a way to move that?
The front's required to be 20 feet.
And that's what it is.
And they're right
there.
at 20 feet, and I don't know that
we don't want to accept
reduce
that.
the front
Okay.
yard.
Is the 20-foot requirement because of driveway length, right? Just so you don't have vehicles spilling on, is that the main reason? I just want to make sure everybody's aware that that's kind of the reason.
Yeah.
Could there then be a variance if they still maintain a 20-foot
I mean, the only
driveway,
thing-
or just throwing
The
that
only thing
out
we've
too?
done is we do have other
But we don't-
areas where we have like a 20-foot garage setback, but you can like bump out the porch,
Right.
closer. But we wouldn't want the garage to be any closer than 20.
That's correct.
I remember even on this, we were concerned about 20 feet would not fit my Suburban. So I think I
won't
said
fit
that
my
in the
truck.
meeting, or Chris's truck. I remember that discussion, so
Right.
I actually think a custom design on this lot may be necessary, and we approve subdivisions and building requirements.
and I
We don't
agree.
approve
I agree. One
plans.
other comment that was made was, that this particular knuckle had a little different design. Is the infrastructure in, I guess, on this? Have they put in the curb and gutter and everything? Okay,
Yeah, the roads are in.
never mind.
So if you were to perhaps do a side entry on a garage, turn the garage.
Yeah, you could
then-
get
then you could slide it-
creative.
Then you could slide it forward.
Yep. You could do a lot of
Again,
things
yeah,
with custom, and I get that, but that's just,
Could we allow the building to slide forward a little bit if they're driving into the side of it? That was my thought. Then you'd have the length that you need for the driveway, but then I don't know.
I'd be more
I-
amenable
I
to
shouldn't-
that.
I
I'd be
shouldn't
more
solve it.
amenable at that if they want to come back with a solution.
Yeah, we'll let
That's
them- we'll
not
let them come up
this
with a
solution.
Okay,
Get a variance, yeah.
Yeah,
right, this one doesn't fit.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I would
That's
agree
kinda where
on
I'm sitting
honor
at.
The 30-foot setback.
Any other comments? Then we will be leaving the public hearing open, and then recommendation to continue to the next available meeting.
I recommend to continue item, sorry, I'm not finding the number. 2.4, without date.
And to notice it for public comment
And
when
to
we bring
notice it
back.
for public comment, yep.
Second, Mayor.
We have a motion by Adam and a second by Andrea. Adam?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Brody?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
And Lauren?
Yes.
Let's move on to item 2.5, which is a request, PUD amendment to allow farmhouse elevation in Miller Crossing Estates. We'll turn to city staff.
So this is for the same phase of Miller Crossing, but we did not receive any public comment on this request.
Thank you.
They have a requirement in Miller Crossing for 30% brick or stone on their elevations, and they have requirements they have to meet. They are requesting they're asking for a farmhouse elevation, which does not have any brick or stone on it, and they are asking for up to 7 homes out of the 22 to have this elevation. This is a couple examples of what the farmhouse elevation looks like. So again, they are asking for up to 7 homes within this phase to have the farmhouse elevation. Any questions?
Nope. Thank you, Bryn. Is the applicant here? If you could just state your name again.
MacArthur Homes.
All right.
So, yeah, it's I think, as you know, a popular elevation nowadays. We get a lot of requests for it. We've actually submitted the first one like this to be as our model, and obviously it's got to be approved by you guys in order to be able to do that. But we're, rather than just a blanket, hey, can we do this, we said let's do as many as 7. Obviously, there's conditions not only required of us, but we self-impose, meaning that we wouldn't do the same elevation either side by side or across the street or in proximity to one another. So anyway, we're just looking for approval to do what has become a popular and requested style of elevation.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Will you clarify what materials you would use on the exterior?
So it's for lack of a better term, hardy board, right? It's the fiber cement product, painted exterior.
Thank you.
Help me out with the maintenance on something like that. To, is it every 10, 20 years you got to repaint it, or what's kind of the maintenance for the
Kind of depends on the product you use. If you use a pre-finished product that comes from the factory with a finish on it, that tends to last longer. If it's field painted, it's probably an every 10-year kind of thing. But yeah, no different than what you see used as accents on homes all throughout the community. So,
I guess what products do you guys use?
What's that?
The prefabricated, not, or I guess
in most cases we field paint.
You field paint.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is the hardy board, not the LP smart siding.
It is or is not?
You guys will be using the hardy board, not the LP smart siding. So I know it's a similar type product that some people have been using.
Yeah, we use a variety of different brands.
Okay.
Not limited to one specific brand.
Yeah, no, the LP smart siding is like a composite, so it's a little different than the hardy board. I just want to make sure it was more of the hardy board.
Would be more of the hardy. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Has there been any lots purchased in this subdivision?
I think we've got 2 sales in there so far, and one of them has requested the farmhouse style. And then we were planning to do a spec home on lot 1114, which is the one just west of the lot we were just talking about. Yep, so we're going to do a spec there. Our model is going on the corner right as you come in. Yep, right there. And then we've sold two other homes.
So the one then that it's not requesting, are they aware of this desire to change?
We have told them it's not approved yet, and we're trying to get it approved, yeah.
But they're aware that you're trying to get this approved? Okay. And they still went through with the sale?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Is there a reason you can't have stone or brick in the building?
Just that it's not typical for that farmhouse style. One thing we talked about, we could go do, you do sometimes see with the farmhouse styles, you'll see brick on them that then they just paint white, so it's white painted brick. Mm-hmm. But it continues with that monochromatic color scheme, that white. So typically you don't see it, but that's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Turn to the Planning Commission for comment.
I personally don't think we should approve it. We've had one of these before where they did a farmhouse and it was on a much bigger scale home subdivision, and we denied it on the same kind of concept of, that's why we approved it the first time. Make your farmhouse match our requirements of 30% stone. That's my opinion, though.
I don't have a big issue with it. If there was a bunch of lots that were already sold, that would be a concern just for the other people that have already planned to move into that subdivision. That was my main concern.
Yeah, I've got a concern about maintenance, so if they can address, hate for somebody to come in, build this house, and then have it start to, crack, fall apart, whatever, the outside of this. That's the point of having a little more
So if we
sturdy.
required them to use the one that has the warranty or the longer lasting finish?
I personally don't think that. I mean, to be honest, we have hardy board everywhere, and it's going to be a maintenance issue. I think it goes against our design guidelines and possibly our master development agreement. So to me, it's make it match what our design was. I don't see any advantage. I remember talking about that with the last one, is what was the advantage of doing a 7? Did they give us something else? Is there some betterment that the community got by allowing them to not have stone? To me, that would make sense if we were receiving something in return. Right now, we're just saying, I like it, or I don't like it. And that's not what we do. We go by our standards that we establish when we create a PUD.
And maybe we can ask the staff, how does this sort of go along with the master development agreement and the standards that they have? How does this differ, or?
Well, the requirement is 30%.
And that's just the master development agreement requires 30%.
What you approved with the PUD required 30%.
So it goes against it.
Yeah.
And that is what we did in the other one where we did this, is they just did white brick. I mean, they just did brick and painted it white on the farmhouse. In the other cases where we've seen it.
And that's not against.
No, there's nothing against painting it on their code, no.
Yeah. And there's no requirement to where they have to put the 30%. It's just 30%.
No. Well, it is frontage to the street, 30%.
Well, yeah, but it could be anywhere on the front, yeah.
Yeah, it could be anywhere.
I think
Or
it
the
gives
whole
them
patio area.
challenge to go after. So I don't see an issue with it. So I'm more on the denial side of this conditional use.
I agree.
Yeah, since it goes against the PUD.
To echo, I think, what everybody else is saying, I think you could easily add a stone or something that's got a very farmhouse feel to it and get that feel. You can get some white stone, some light stone, a mix of that stone, what it could actually look really nice. I think these, in general, these have a nice look to them. So I'm not saying it's bad, it's just we do need to have that additional low maintenance item on the building. Especially, I would recommend it down low, but like they've said before, we can't say where. So I think if it's on there, it'll help the building just look better longer.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you're gonna make a motion, have a really good reason in your motion.
Okay.
And it's for a PUD amendment, so make sure that's what you're saying.
Turn to the planning commission for a
Anybody
motion.
else want to try, or? I'm open.
You're so good
I'm
at it,
open. Go for it.
So good at it, though.
I recommend denial of item C2014-38-13, the PUD amendment to allow farmhouse elevations in Miller Estates on the basis that it does not meet the 30% front elevation, exterior elevation that is required in the master development agreement and the PUD. And I am open, I'll be honest, I am open to farmhouse style that has 30%. So if it looked like this with 30% stone, I don't have an issue. So, but based off removing the 30% stone, I have an issue with that. So.
And I'll second that.
Motion by Adam and a second by Lauren. We'll start on this side with Lauren.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Brody,
Yes.
Andrew, and Andrea, sorry, we got too many A's.
No.
And Adam.
Yes.
So then passes with a vote 5-1.
Can I explain my?
Absolutely, if you'd like to.
So I'm wondering if maybe in the future we should reconsider. I don't love stucco, and brick can be great and stone can be great, but I wonder if there's other things that we should consider as new products come out. Yeah, for exterior materials. So, and vinyl, I don't love vinyl either. So.
Thank you, Andrea. And I think a good place to start with a lot of that is in these master development agreements when they come, as those do come across our table before they typically get approved. And so maybe some of those recommendations we can make moving forward with some of the other development agreements we may see. We'll now turn to the legislative items. Item 3.1, which is a request for assorted text edits to the Land Development Code. And we'll turn to city staff on this one, but this is open for a public hearing.
Yes. So again, this is several different, just minor edits to the code, just some cleanup items. I'll go through them here. The first one is literally just a cleanup item, just a typo on the reference on this one. Number 2 here is just removing the requirement. We're not removing the requirement for a building permit. We're just removing it from the zoning ordinance. It's still part of the building code. A fence is required to have a building permit if it's a certain height. We just don't want that requirement in the zoning ordinance because it changes in the building code from time to time, and even this is already out of date, so just leave it to the building code. This one is in the landscaping code. For some reason, the parking lot landscaping listed C1, MU2, all the other kind of commercial zones, but did not list C2. So just adding C2 to the list there for parking lot landscaping. Number 4 here, this is, we do allow you to do stamped concrete in your park strip if you get approval from the city engineer. This just specifically says that if you do it, it needs to be a colored decorative concrete. This change, again on the very bottom, is to change shrubs from 18-inch to a requirement for 5-gallon for the size. Number 6 is to change the front yard in the C2 zone to 20 feet. We require 20 feet of landscaping in the front yard on all on all front yards or side yards of a commercial building, so it didn't make sense to have the setback be 8 feet when we always require 20 feet of landscaping, so we just wanted those to be compatible. Number 7 is changing the requirement, I'm reading through it. Oh, the height of a deck or patio, yeah, from 3 feet to 30 inches above grade. So if it's 30 inches above grade or greater, you have to meet the setback. And that matches with building code as well, so just consistent. And that's what I got. So this is a public hearing.
Thank you, Bryn. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. And we will now close the public hearing and turn to the Planning Commission for any comments.
These all make sense, so I don't have anything.
Too easy, no comment here.
I will now look for a motion on the item. And this is actually a recommendation for a text change to the City Council.
All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I'd like to make a recommendation for approval to the City Council for item 3.1, these assorted text edits to the Land Development Code.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Andrew with a second by Jackson, and we'll proceed on to a vote with Adam.
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Brody?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
And Lauren?
Yes.
And that will close up our legislative items, and then we'll turn for any chair and commission comments.
I have one that we need to talk about, and maybe John could stand up and we could kind of dialogue this out a little bit. but the emails, we've talked before that we weren't gonna receive those, and I totally get that staff's trying to give us as much information as possible. But to me, if it's not a public comment, I don't think we should even see an email at all. Because otherwise, we're kind of stuck, where we're allowing the haves and the
Yeah.
have-nots kind of thing.
So John, you and I haven't talked about this, and I appreciate where you're coming from. I did ask the state ombudsman in an email just to get another opinion on this item. I mean, I appreciate that we're trying to ensure that we don't violate due process. My experience has been that we've tried, as staff, we've tried to provide as much information as possible. Adam, you just alluded to that. So I certainly want to follow the law. So yeah, I want to find out, you know, if that's a problem, we won't do it. But that's different from what my culture and where I've come from in the past.
Well,
I worked, while I worked for 11 years in Salt Lake City, that has never been an issue. We have always provided every piece of information that came in. We erred on the side of transparency all the time, trusting that the Planning Commission and staff understands how to filter that information. But maybe I am completely wrong. And I've asked for an opinion on that matter, saying if that's inappropriate, then absolutely we will make sure that that does not happen again.
I'm glad we got the information.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But we also need to understand, we've got to make sure we're doing exactly what our city attorney advises us to do. So I totally appreciate that. And we'll just get to the bottom of that issue.
Well, and this one was kind of unique where you had people actually send emails directly to Planning Commission as well. So not everybody, and I know that's spurred the first one, right? And so that's a little unique where some information
Yeah, because they have
getting
previous
through.
involvement with a couple of us, so they had our emails and sent it right to us.
Correct.
I think I appreciate the information. I just think we need to work through it so it's not against any laws, I guess, or rules.
Right.
So I appreciate the information, but I'll be honest, unless it's true factual information, like we know it was in the agreement, I'll be honest, that was great to have it. But usually public comments are like, would be key, or like, hey, there's a well on that property, did you know about that? Mm-hmm. They're big, substantial, they're not in my backyard comments, and I'll be honest, reading through that, not that the homeowner was saying that, they were agreeing to what they had heard in the public comments and things like that, which I agree. That's why I was going to vote. I still know what I'm going to vote when it comes up. But to me, they have to be substantial in order to have us see that. Like, hey, this business has been operating for 5 years already. That's an issue. Those kind of things are what we need to see.
But then we are making a judgment call on what to filter between, and so I think we just got to make a clear decision one way or the other.
Well, this is my question, maybe this should be brought up in the training. What determines whether we do a public hearing? Because it seems like some items are on for it, and I've never understood why we do a public hearing.
The ordinance, the Title 10 specifically says which items are for a public hearing, which aren't.
Okay.
And of course, that's consistent with state code.
So I need to read. You're saying I need to read.
Go read the state code.
You know,
We'll talk about it.
I've read it once before. I forgot it all.
And it's changed.
Wait, Brent, do you not want us to read? No.
John has been in this business longer than I have, but I've been doing this for 20 years, and it has changed a lot in 20 years, hasn't it, John? We used to do a lot more public hearings on items that are now administrative. So.
You sat there and thought for a moment. No, it's ready.
I don't know if I'm prepared to answer any of these questions, but I think we ought to make a decision and comply with that decision instead of just saying, "Oh, here's some emails. Do you want to see them?" Let's determine. Get the ombudsman opinion. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's get it. You already applied for it. Let's see what he says. Then we'll evaluate it, and then we make the decision, and then we comply with what we decide.
Correct. And I'm actually okay with right now, if the city staff would have held all, I get that some people got their emails, whatever. Oops. But if the city staff would have held the pile and said, we received 25 emails on this topic, that might make us go, hey, let's review those versus I received one.
I'm just saying, because you're starting to get.
But my other question, John, is if we get the email, does it become part of the public record? Do I put it in the file? Because if I put it in the file, then it doesn't matter if you see it or not, it's still part of the record.
Correct.
Just for the mere fact that I received it. So, yeah, I don't know.
These are issues we have to
Yeah.
resolve. I mean,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of questions here.
Because emails, we could have gotten email like for that too. I mean, everybody had the same right to send us an email agreeing with that, so. Does that make
Except for
sense?
our emails aren't public record.
Oh, I know, but
Right,
I'm saying, right, but I'm just saying they could have got one for it too, so if it's, that's where, I think where Mike's saying the emails are always been accepted. We could have accepted an email for.
In my previous employer.
Right,
So
right, that's right.
this is the first time I've dealt with this here, and obviously
We can make that
I made
decision.
a misstep.
We can make that
So-
decision and give you everything if you
Yeah.
want. But let's look at it, think about it, and then make a decision, and then we'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to decide if
See
it's
what
a
the
public
ombudsman
hearing or
says.
not.
Because generally, for an administrative matter, you don't have a public hearing. What
Right.
good does it do?
Correct.
You give people that they might have a comment, and you'll take it into consideration, but you can't.
Well, plus when they get
Generally,
their,
public can't clamor.
and I agree with you. I mean, if they got their letter and it said, this is what it is conditional use, and me knowing what that means, that I have no ability to change or accept that, I'm not even gonna comment or go, because it's not worth my time to go. You know what I'm saying? So I could see even in the letter, we're already starting them off by, maybe they don't show up because they know they don't have an opportunity to speak.
And I think that does happen. If they find out they aren't going to have a chance to say something, they just don't show up. So we don't recognize that this is more of a concern than we know. That there are citizens that are in opposition because we just never hear about it. And so the one thing that I wanted to add, which is on topic but off topic to this, is that I know we have items, and some of the items that we talked about today even may fall in this category, that depending on how we vote or what we do, it seems to set a precedence, and we need to be careful with that, because though it may seem like a little thing now, later on it may become a big problem with another developer or project. And so we just need to be very careful with some of the stuff we look at. I don't think today in any way did we go down that path, but I just wanted to sort of state it because I think sometimes it can get us into trouble later on if we start making adjustments for every builder and every developer and every PUD and different MDA, master development agreements. And so I think maybe an education on that as well may be something that's beneficial for us to just talk about, because I think we do need to be careful. We don't need to be letter of the law with every single item because we know there's exceptions, but we need to be careful with why there are exceptions.
Well, and I would like to be prepared so that when a developer is coming to the city asking to make a modification to an MDA, that we're ready to propose some modifications of our own. So,
Agreed.
Because there's a number of things that I would love to see changed, and I'm sure Bryn and the rest of the staff feels the same way.
And that to me is
So-
one of the reasons why we would accept more changes, is we're getting, it goes both direction, right? So I think that's right hand in hand, so. I do have one other thing, and it's more for the planning staff. With how we notice the subdivision and the conditional use, and we still approve it based off the same comments, it used to be when you guys would. Yeah, for example, the charter school is a perfect example. In the old days, we noticed two different motions, and there were some criteria that fit the subdivision, some that fit the conditional use. And I'm good that we've now consolidated those, but I'm just asking, is that still how, I mean, can't we just do one?
And you said that last time.
Yes.
And let me state why.
Because I'll be honest, it gets hard to make sure in my mind that I'm covering
Yeah.
both things for the topics that we're talking about.
So the site plan approval, our approval with all those conditions are going to go into a letter, and that letter is going to be presented to the state. So where we were ultra concerned about compliance and making sure that they respected all of these agreements that we've negotiated, we have that now on record with the state as far as what our requirements are, and then of course we have it for our subdivision. again, it was just that kind of that belt and suspendered approach. You know, how do you, in this case, a lot of the civil engineering comments really overlapped between the site plan and the subdivision. And we were also working on just incredible timelines, trying to make this happen. But I appreciate what you're saying. They should be unique. I mean, the standards that were included in your packets were unique to each portion. But typically, yeah, you're right. We would want to have conditions that more specifically tie to each element.
I mean, to me, they're kind of one thing. We do that each time as we cover it twice, but in reality, we look at the same information. I'm just wondering, is there a way where we can combine them, where we make the motion to approve for both?
We could look at it.
It just doesn't. That's the issue. Is I don't think you need to add more. I just don't know why we can't notice item 24.2 and subdivision at the same time. Talk it all about that, and we just talk about it once, one motion, because it is rare, if I can never remember, that we would do one or the other separate.
We just did with Teton. And you approved the plat, but not the final PUD.
Yeah.
Correct. Good, okay.
Better keep them separate then.
That's probably the first time I think we've ever done it. But,
Correct.
I have written staff reports where it's one report for multiple petitions.
Correct.
But I still think I've had multiple motions, but depending on each application.
And I'm okay with multiple motions, like even if it was back to back, you know, like you motion this, then you motion this. The part that's confusing to me, and I think it's confusing to the public, is we make a motion, and then we open it, we go to a next phase, and we rediscuss the exact same thing and say, do you have anything else? And that's the part to me that's clunky. It's not necessary. I have no problem doing back-to-back motions. It's that we open it back up like last time when they wanted to debate what I already had said. I'm not going to change that. That to me is not the intent.
In this case tonight, one item had a public hearing and the other item didn't. So you still needed to have two motions.
with a subdivision and a PUD, that's always going to be the case.
I'm just saying on the restarting the dialogue just seems like
It's true.
Address them both.
especially like last time where they were upset and now they're just going to debate me. We don't debate in these kind of meetings. We say what our vote is and it goes through the body. And that's the part that I think we're opening ourselves up to more of those kind of debates where in reality that's not the purpose of a public meeting like this. It's not a debate. And so maybe we make the motion, open it up for public comment, because we do public comment first, so it already happens. Then we do the conditional use, but I just don't know why we reopen it for the applicant to talk again. It just seems really weird to me.
Again, last time I was concerned about the due process.
That's fair.
And so maybe that's another issue we could have John weigh in on.
And I'm good with that.
Required or not. Yeah.
And I get that. I've seen it before where they stand up as well and still not happy with what we've done.
And then use the second opportunity to provide more comment and come back.
Push their point across, unless we want to change our motion, which I don't think we do.
But it may be a necessary step. I don't know. Let's see if we can get an opinion on that.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Adam. I will look for a motion to adjourn the meeting at this time.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Give to Lauren.
No.
He grabbed the mic first.